No. And do you think that, are you worried about the expansion of the, just so you guys know, David knows this because he's an expert on the matter, but in the Australian Constitution, the amount of lower house members in the parliament, federally, they have to be double the amount of senators. So are you worried about there being an expansion of the Senate? For example, the territories having more senators added. Obviously, the territories, Canberra being one of the only places that voted yes, very left-wing. Are you worried they might add more senators there and then...
Well, as they can, as you know. That's a loophole, to put it that way. I think the idea of the states having equal votes is correct because that was the basis of federation.
Sure.
It also means that Sydney and Melbourne don't decide everything, which is the way we're heading because of the seats. Because the size of Sydney and Melbourne, and to an extent Brisbane, mean that so many house seats are in these small areas. And that's unhealthy because we are a continent and we have to encourage the development of other parts of the thing. The other thing is that federation is a mess, thanks to the High Court particularly, but also the politicians. And what we have is a situation now where about 80% of taxes are collected by Canberra, about 20% by the states.
Wow.
Canberra keeps about half of that for themselves. They give the rest to the states, but they give the rest to the states with instructions on how to spend it. So the idea of a federation is that decisions which are more local should be decided locally. But it also means that those decisions are made genuinely locally. It means, too, that you get competition between the states. Why is it, for example, that the schooling system in Australia is so bad at the moment, where we have an effective number, a significant percentage of students coming out of the educational system into which more federal money is being poured all the time under Gonski and so on? Why is it that an effective percentage of boys especially, but girls too, are innumerate and illiterate? Now, I can go back to when I was in primary school. I was in a very ordinary state primary school. Nothing wrong with it when I say ordinary.
Of course.
But I wasn't in a private school. And every boy in a class of about 50 could read. This is in fourth class when you're about 10. Every boy could read because you had to stand up. It went around the class and you had to stand up and read. Every boy could do mathematical equations. You had to go out on the board and do things, even in geometry and so on. There was this widespread education. There was a small class of those who were mainly mentally deficient, but they weren't many for the whole school. And of course, always you're going to have unfortunate people who are mentally deficient. That happens in society. But it wasn't in any way out of proportion.
Yeah.
But in an ordinary class, ordinary boys, and there was a decision taken in the sixth class when we were about 12. And it was decided where you would go. And some boys went to a technical school. You didn't ask, as you do now. You didn't have your parents jockeying to get to live in areas where there was a good chance of getting into a better school because of the system. And parents didn't employ tutors to get them through the exams. So you were just told.
Yeah.
Some boys were thought to be, they took a decision, these are technical. Other boys went to an ordinary high school at Randwick, and the smart boys, the ones that were judged to be more suited to certain tasks, went to Sydney High, which was the only public high school which was a GPS school. It was a very good school.
Yes.
So that worked out very well, and it was all run by the state. The state funded it.
Yes.
Commonwealth put nothing in it. And we had a much better system. Now we have this complicated system of the federal government trying to run the schools as well as run defence. The result being that they run both very poorly. And the whole system of federation, where you have... The wonderful thing about federation, too, is you have competition.
Yes.
If one state does something better than others, it becomes very obvious. And we had the celebrated case when Joh Bjelke-Petersen, the Premier of Queensland, one of the terrible taxes, and I think you have them in all countries, one of the terrible taxes was death duties. And particularly in Britain, this was used by the Labour Party against the aristocracy, I think, to punish them. Because they were then taxed on the value of their holdings, particularly of their grand estates, and this became impossible
Yes.
to live with. But in Australia, it meant that when usually the man, the head of the family, died, and if they had a business, even if they didn't have a business, there would be very substantial duties, sometimes,
Yes.
25%, 30%.
Yeah. The only way to pay for it is to liquidate the whole thing.
Yes. So
Yes.
what does a farmer do? What does a business... Well, it's
Yeah.
easier with a business person because you can float it, I suppose. And
That's being floated
Reinformed.
right now even more in the
Isn't
UK
it?
right now, isn't it? There's
Yes.
been big farmer protests.
now, one Premier, Sir Joh Bjelke-Petersen, the National Party Premier of Queensland, against the advice of his Treasurer, the opposition of his Treasurer, against the advice of the Public Service, decided he was going to abolish death duties. He abolished death duties. What happened? Elderly Australians from the rest of Australia started moving to Queensland. This created competition between
That's
the
right.
states.
That's right.
So all the states thought, well,
Yep.
we've got to do the same, otherwise elderly people are just going to leave our state, sell all their real estate and go to Queensland.
There's your
and-
tax base.
Yes.
And that's the thing, David. In Australia, if you have one good state, just one, even during COVID, where they weren't locking everyone down, they did a bit of a Florida approach. If they had that, people's most powerful vote before their vote is their feet. And
Yes.
when they vote with their feet and they move state, you have true competition.
Yes.